Hi everyone, and welcome to Module 2, which focuses on the whole deaf-blind advocacy experience. If you haven't had a chance to watch the other video I sent, I had emailed the group way before the class with sort of a very quick, it's about 8 minutes, preliminary video to explain what, because this is only 1 week and it happens pretty quick, I wanted to give everyone a heads up so that you can jump right in and do the work, and to explain a little bit of how I have this all set up. I haven't done any one of these before, so this is a first go round for me. However, I did this video as a more in-depth explanation of at least the very first part of what I developed and what I'd like you to do. I don't know about you, but sometimes I do better if I have a visual or someone shows me, and that works better for me. So I developed this video as a partner with some of this so that as you're going through the work that I can kind of guide you through it. A lecture per se. However, I did this video yesterday, and I have to vent for a second. I did this video yesterday and it was done, and then I uploaded to YouTube and it was 99% uploaded, and then Camtasia crashed on me. So I lost the video, it never got saved, so I'm starting over again. So, with that being said, if you want a little bit more explanation to sort of, again, the 3 parts that are what we're doing this week, go back and watch the other video. I'm not going to reiterate that because I've already said it, and I don't want you to have to listen to it twice. So feel free, if you haven't watched that or you forgot it and you watched it when I first sent it, then go back and watch again. I'll also put a link to that so you can refer back to it if you need to. But there's basically 3 parts to this week that we're going to be doing. And the whole purpose of how I came up with this whole framework is I was thinking about giving you the information that you need, but also that the work that you're doing, and since most of you are almost done, and for a lot of you this actually is the last stop before graduation, congratulations, I wanted to give you something that would be meaningful, that you're not just like regurgitating from a textbook, but you're actually developing something that you can take with you and use, and that's really the goal. So what I'm going to do today is walk through a resource guide that I developed, a template anyway, and give you some thoughts throughout this on how you can make it your own and how you can develop something that's really going to help you in whatever work that you plan on doing. Obviously, it's going to be with the focus of with deaf-blind, but if your work ends up varying slightly from that, you can do multiple of them. I will say that it's been very helpful to me. This is something that I use very frequently. Maybe not so much now in the work that I do at Harvard, but certainly when I worked for the state as a VR counselor, this was something that I used often. And let me tell you, your ability to help your client or advocate or whatever terminology you want to use is only going to be as good as the resources that you have available to you. You can't do it all. So knowing the resources that are in your local community that you can really streamline and guide your clients to what they need is going to help them gain better independence and ultimately get them where they want to go. So let's walk through this together. So the first thing that I did on this page, I developed this resource guide. It's in doc format, which you can personalize and start with this template if you'd like, and there's a few different aspects to it that I'm going to show you. If you choose not to use that, or you've actually developed something else on your own, then you don't have to use this, but I thought it would be a good jumping off point if you weren't sure what to create or how to create. And also I included some topics that I think will be helpful. So the first page I developed kind of an overview, and one that was obviously an explanation for you, but you can use this in a couple different ways. So if it's just meant to be an internal document for yourself, then obviously you don't need this first page. You can get rid of it and you don't have to keep it. But as a professional, you might decide that as you develop this resource guide, that this is a good tool or additional tool in your arsenal or whatever to actually give to clients that you work with, to say, here's a resource guide that I've compiled of local things in the area, so that any things that you might recommend, you can even circle different things on there and literally just give it to your client or email it to them, what have you, and give them all the information that they need that you discussed. I find that having a tool like that is really helpful for even when I'm meeting with clients for the first time. It's a great conversation starter. It's a good guide to kind of pace the conversation, to show a client different information, and it helps you remember all the different resources, because having them all at the top of your head is going to be very difficult to remember. But if you have the resource guide and you're going through it with a client, it can prompt you through the different questions of just doing an intake or getting a sense of sort of where they are and what their needs are. So if it is something that you want to provide to your clients and keep as like a handout, then you can take this first page and you can add additional detail or information about yourself as a professional, so that when you give it to your client, all of your information is there too. It could have everything from you, about you, your business, your contact information, a little blurb about who you are and what you do. Just as a reminder, it's always helpful to give clients that information. I will say, since we are talking about deaf-blind, that if you do plan to share it externally, you want to make sure that your document is fully accessible and available to your client in a format that they can use a screen reader. Because obviously, a print format is going to be the least desirable option for someone who has a vision loss. So most of those clients are going to be using things like JAWS or VoiceOver or some other digital tool, or they may just use their phone or their laptop or an iPad and access the digital format of and be able to pinch and zoom so that they can magnify the page or change the font, change the background. There's a number of things they can do if they have the digital version that's accessible. If you have questions about how to do that, there's a lot of resources online, and I'm also happy to guide you, but you want to make sure that it'll work with a screen reader, which means that once you're done personalizing it in your Word doc format, you want to save it as a PDF also, because you don't want people to change your document. So save it as a PDF, and then that's the format you can email to clients, and then they can use that with whatever screen reader or app that they're using. So what is the purpose of a community resource guide? Well, basically, it's just that. What are the things that exist in your community that can be a really good resource to your client? And there's a whole number of areas that people may not know where to start. And a lot of things that maybe you hadn't even thought of. So I'm giving you some ideas today. You may want to add your own, and I encourage you to brainstorm. This is a good starting point, and these are some of the things that I have encountered over the years for various clients that I've worked with. But in your specific area that you live or work, there may be things that are very specific or unique to your area and an additional resource that you might want to add, and you're the best expert to the area about what those things might be. So I did a couple different versions of this template, and as you scroll through, I did a couple of different things, and I'll walk you through the different iterations. You can use all three. You can choose to just do one. The first one is a categorical list, and I just put like a title, community resources, in any town, state, so put the name of your town. Also, I will say that you might want to do a couple of different versions of this depending on where you live. In some places around the country, you might live in a very urban area that resources might be very different from one end of the state to another, or another even town to another end of the town or city. And then in other places, you might be in a really like rural area where resources over here are not really, you can't get them from on this side. So you want to have, if you're working in multiple areas in the state, you might want to have, say, a resource list just for the urban area, and then a resource list for the more rural areas in which you work, so that depending on where your client lives and who you're working with, you can give them resources that are actually attainable for them where they are. Some of the things that you might be talking about with a client are going to be any one of the following. And again, if you feel that any of these are truly outside the scope of what you're going to be doing and they're not applicable to you, then feel free to delete that. The whole point of doing this is that it's going to be something that is going to be useful and applicable for what you're doing. So if it's not, personalize it. That's the goal. But I guess the goal for in terms of this class or this module is that you should be able to, and this is actually part 2 or unit 2 of this week, is that one of your peers or your colleagues should be able to take a look at your resource guide and get a pretty good sense of what resources are available in that area and where the barriers lie by making certain inferences. So it needs to be detailed enough that you can get a sense. So I would say you want more than like 2 things, but anyway. So first and foremost is healthcare. While we're not necessarily healthcare providers, having good healthcare is usually very much lacking within certain groups, this being one of them, where there's a whole number of reasons why someone might not be dialed into really good healthcare. And that could be general medical, it could be hearing or vision. In most of the clients that I have worked with over the years, this is a very overlooked and very important first step in making sure that they have someone for whatever's going on with them medically. In a lot of cases, especially for deaf-blind, usually one of the diagnoses are older ones, like they might have been deaf since birth, but the vision loss is new. And they may need they may need assessment, they might need something diagnostic, they might need more testing, they might need other medical care because it's a newer diagnosis. The client may not fully understand what's going on, and you can give some advocacy and some help, but you don't replace that, a vision specialist or an audiologist. So if they need those services, you want to be able to connect them to the people that can make sure that they have the information and the care that they need so that they are all set in that regard. So I kept this template pretty straightforward, that you're just going to put, like, in each category, you're going to put the name of the location, the contact person, if you have one, the number or email, and then a quick little note about like what types of services are offered and what they can do. And that could be everything from nuanced services and things that are unique to that provider to being able to explain what something is. Not all clients may understand what audiologist means, or when you're talking about specific medical specialists, they may not know what all of those terms are. So if it's meant to be an external document and you're going to share that with clients, you might want to put a brief description or identifier so that a client will understand what they're reading. Then I also put a category for general information, national as well as local resources. So this would be a good place for national organizations. So for example, the Helen Keller National Center, where I actually used to work there, they actually provide nationwide support in a whole bunch of different areas for individuals who are deaf-blind. Everything from education to on-site training and other types of supports. They're a good go-to not only for you, but potentially for your client. So that's an organization that you might want to include. Search for other ones that provide nationwide support, information, everything from a very helpful, the National Federation for the Blind is a great website to start if your client is in need of just basic information, looking for other resources. It's a good place to include this, even if it's just the website. Local resources, you want to look at similar types of supports and organizations within your own town, city, state, what have you. Same thing. Give them some information as a starting point so that they can get more information under their belt if that's something that they need. The next category is vocational supports. So not every client that you're working with is going to be of employment age, but a lot might be. Whether it be youth that are still in school that are aging out, or in school till 21, or they've newly graduated but they're unemployed or underemployed. For those of you who are not aware, vocational rehabilitation is done at the state level, and each VR office is different in terms of how they're set up. In fact, they all have different names. Somewhat. There's usually a little bit of variety in the name. I used to work for the Office of Rehabilitation Services, or ORS, but I know other states that they call themselves a different acronym. They're like Department of Vocation, and or there's usually a little bit of a variant there, but essentially they all do the same thing, which is they get state funding as well as some national matching support financially to provide vocational supports and services to individuals with a disability. And that's just not deaf-blind, but in general, just disability. So individuals that qualify and meet their qualification criteria, they will get paired with a vocational rehabilitation counselor or case manager, however they're called, and they'll work with that person to develop a vocational plan, and then whatever's approved within that vocational plan, then that office can actually pay for things like job development, job coaching, possibly even training and even education, and then any tools and other supports that someone might need so that they can become successfully employed. This can be a really useful tool to help someone get where they want to be, get successfully employed, become more independent if they want to work and they have very specific vocational goals. You can be a great partner with them to even make that referral, but then also continue to work with the VR counselor on both sides to really provide good wraparound services and supports for your client. It's a really great service. I loved working for the agency, and there's a lot of stuff that they can do, and the fact that they can actually pay for a lot of the stuff is also very helpful, because as you know, the hardest part with all of this is not even finding supports, but it's finding like the financial support, and they pay for the things that they recommend, so it can be really, really powerful tool. Independent living. As I mentioned, a lot of people who are deaf-blind have a new diagnosis, one side or the other. So independent living may be a challenge in some areas. So when you're meeting with someone, you may find, they may say something like, well, I've been deaf my whole life, and I'm fine with that. I've been part of my community or whatever, but now that I'm losing my sight, I'm having trouble like matching my clothes, or staying safe in my apartment, or pouring my coffee in the morning, or any number of things that are part of independent living, or even accessing their services in the community, or just being social. All the things that are important that we all do as just part of our lives. Housing, rent assistance, and utility support. There's usually emergency services in every state that provide emergency funding or some kind of support and guidance for individuals who are in crisis. And this may very well be the case if you have a client who has a recent diagnosis and they were employed. There's also a very good chance that they might have just recently lost their job. So other things might need to be dealt with before you do anything else. So finding a new job is great, but they also might be in danger of being evicted. So priorities, you need to make sure that they're out of crisis first before you look at other parts of a long-term plan. So you might want to connect them with some of these emergency support services to make sure that their lights don't get turned off, or that they're not evicted from their apartment, or that their house doesn't fall into foreclosure. Any number of things. Financial assistance. Along with that often comes, again, financial things that have been backburnered or fall by the wayside. If you have someone that is not working or unable to return to work, you might want to include services like SSI, SSDI, not really a service, but Social Security Administration provides financial assistance for people who have a significant disability that can't work. and so they can receive that monthly assistance to make sure that they can take care of their needs and what have you. The process for applying for these is very lengthy. However, the sooner they do it, the better, and it's good that they know that it exists if they need it. So if there's, and as well as any other local places you want to include, just anyone that they can reach out to for support and help if this is an area where they really need assistance. Food assistance. That could be everything from local food pantries to food stamps and how to apply for those types of things, and anything else that you can find that might be able to provide either temporary or long-term support for individuals who need it in this area. Transportation assistance. Everything from getting around to accessibility of local transportation. You want to make sure that your client has the information that they need to be able to get access to different bus service, public transit, as well as specialized service. In most places that I'm aware of, they also do have some sort of like a disability van service or other kind of service that provides like a door-to-door kind of situation for individuals that qualify. And certainly someone who is deaf-blind would certainly fall in that category. Aging, disability, and personal care services. There might be issues that if you have someone that falls in this category, but they're also getting older and they're struggling with taking care of themselves or having issues, they might also qualify for different types of maybe CNA care or home health care services or other types of elder care. So you want to search for elder care in your local area and include information for that. Legal assistance. You might have someone that, everything from debt to family issues to a whole bunch of other things to applying for SSI and being denied. Legal costs are very expensive, and usually most states do offer low or no cost legal assistance for people who qualify that have a disability. There's one in my state, for example, that provides free legal assistance or very low cost legal assistance for individuals who have been denied SSI, and then they can choose, they will provide legal assistance to help someone file an appeal, go to court, fight it, etc., etc. It's a really, really useful resource to be able to provide for those who fall in that category. Volunteer and faith-based services. Don't underestimate the power of your church. You may want to volunteer yourself if it's something that you can lend some support to your church, and then therefore be more informed about the types of services and supports that they are offering to the community. This could be really helpful to engage your client with working with them to be able to get not only supports for everything from, they might have a food pantry, to clothing drives and other types of things that might be very helpful, but just the sense of community and other kinds of social emotional support can be really, really valuable and helpful to your client. And so you want to make sure that they're aware of that too. Now, this is the categorical list that I came up with, but I also did this another version. So one thing that will happen over time, if it hasn't happened already for you, is that you may have this categorical list, but then as you start to reach out to local or even national resources, you may find a connection in the community of a VR counselor at your local VR agency that answers your phone calls and is really good when you need someone to pick their brain and say, hey, I got a client that this, and I need your input as to whether or not they would be eligible and what's your recommendation for this. Sometimes you just want to brainstorm with another colleague that does similar work. Same thing with having someone in your local church or faith center. It's always good, as they say in the Boston area, to know, like, I know a guy. Sometimes it's good to know a guy. So if you have a number of like networking or people that you know and you have their direct contact, and this is probably more of like a internal list for you as opposed to the categorical one would be one that you want to give to your client. But this might be something that you want to keep for yourself, that you have like a quick cheat sheet, if you will, that you're like, oh, I need to reach out to someone in VR, and you have that person's name, contact number, and then some, quick little reminders or information about that service, that person, and sort of what their eligibility is. And you can keep updating this to remind yourself and have at your fingertips when you need this information. And same kind of thing, primarily the same categories, but again, you can organize by specific name and contacts that you can just reach out to immediately. You have all that information. So you might not think that you need it, but let me tell you, when you've been doing this for work for a while, I still run into this all the time, where I'll be like, I need to contact somebody at Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and I'm like, what was the name of that person? And I'll be searching in my email, and I can't remember the person's name. And having something like this is really, really a great tool to have, especially when you need to, if you have a client that's in crisis and you need to come up with information immediately. You don't have time to be searching your emails and cobbling this together last minute. You have everything right here, and you can just be emailing people or calling people to get information quickly. And then lastly, this is an example resource reference for, this is a hospital-based one, but you can personalize it for whatever you're going to be working in, and just a different format of the other two resource guides that I had above, where you can put like the name of the organization, as well as the category, the name of the contact person's name, and then a brief synopsis of services. So this could also be like, instead of giving someone an entire resource guide, maybe this is the only, maybe you just do this like kind of one pager of resources, and that's what you give to clients. And then, or you can, again, it can be internal, it can be external, however you want to use it. But this is some like, like kind of like a mock-up that I did for, again, it's hospital based, but you want to tweak it for where you think you're likely to be working, and in the different categories or the things that you think will be most helpful for the populations that you'll be working with. So I hope this is helpful. I wanted to kind of brainstorm a bit with you and just kind of show you a little bit of like where I was coming from. I'm going to put this template, it'll all be in the discussion forum along with all these videos, so you can review and for you to develop the resource guide. So part one is going to be, you're going to develop a really comprehensive resource guide. The second part, or unit 2, is you're going to review someone else's resource guide. And I want you to compare it to the one you developed. And I want you to look and compare and contrast. What are some things that really jump out at you that are in this other person's resource guide that are in stark contrast to the resources that you feel are really important in your area? Are there any things that geographically look very different, or by demographic look very, very different in terms of what they chose to hone in on? Or is there anything that they picked up on that you're like, oh, I didn't even think about including that, and I want to also include it in my resource guide because I overlooked it, and I'm going to add that. So this is an opportunity to be like sharing with one another too, and anything that you might have missed, you can certainly update yours if you'd like to. And then lastly, we're going to actually talk, I developed 2 case studies for 2 very different deaf-blind individuals, and I want you to read through that. And then you're going to be doing sort of a write-up on what are some of the resources that you would share with this client, client A and client B, and what are some of the things that you're looking at just based on the write-up that I did, and in terms of like what you would expect to have to focus on with each client that would be both similar as well as different, and what would your approach be with both. It's just really to get you started thinking about how, people are so different, and your approach might be very different for both of them, but there's different things that you want to be looking at. And I will be popping into the forums to walk you through any questions that you might have, because some of the other things that I purposefully put into the case file is things like medical documentation or medical information that you might be told or that might be shared with you in terms of someone's visual acuity or their hearing loss or other information, and how do you parlay that into the information that you're going to share with your client. So again, you're not a diagnostician, nor are you a medical provider, but it is important for you to understand this information and be able to apply it. So I included that purposefully so that if you have questions or if that's an area that you're not feeling as comfortable with, we can discuss it and I can kind of break it down for you a little bit. I think that some of you are already pretty comfortable with that kind of stuff, so it may be a non-issue. But if you're in, same thing with like accommodations or looking at barriers or things presented by a disability, this is kind of like the stuff that's well within my wheelhouse that I'm, I think that I can share some valuable information and insights to you. So hopefully I put everything in the discussion forum so all the information's in one place for the week, given that we have such limited time. And then the goal is that we have everything there, and as you're working through it, we can all just collaborate with one another and just gather as much information universally as we can and learn from one another. So hopefully it's me kind of like an interactive virtual seminar, but a very hands-on workshop. And that's kind of the goal and the approach that I'm coming at this with. If there's any questions, by all means, feel free to email me, put them in the forum so that we can answer them for you, or your colleagues can answer them for you. And I'm looking forward to see what everyone comes up with. I'm sure I might even get a few tips from all of you, as well as learn more about your little areas of the country, because I've been working in the Boston area for quite a while now, and it's always helpful to me to see what's happening in other places and what sort of things is everyone going through in other parts of the country. So looking forward to this week. I know it's going to be fast and furious, but that's why I'm making everything open early so that you can tackle things as whatever works for you. I look forward to talking with all of you. Take care. Bye.